I'd like to know.
Cheers, Paul.
Hey. Very happy day.
I'm Jan.
And I'm Paul. And I hope you guys are enjoying us, having a hangout. I hope you got a glass of wine and you're sitting back, pondering the evils of the world as we are.
With humor. Anyway, welcome to the Shadowcast.
And some nice vino. Yeah.
Well, today I thought I'd like to talk about a brainwashing expert who analyzed the behavior of the crowd at the Trump shooting. And I got to say, I thought it was surreal to me, the behavior of those people there. And I got to say, if I was behind somebody who got shot, I think I'd react with a little more urgency and attention than what most people did.
Yeah?
There was a lot of freezing, a lot of just people continuing to stand up, continuing to sit down, filming with their cameras.
Is that right?
At an right behind the guy that got shot in the ear.
Where you're in the line of fire?
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought it might be
dive into the ground.
I thought it might be interesting to hear the thoughts of a behavioral. This guy. Okay, so his name is Chase Hughes. He's a former military chief. I gotta have my glasses on. Sorry. Former military chief and human behavior expert Chase Hughes recently launched a groundbreaking book on mind control. After 2 decades of serving the U.S. military, he has gained unprecedented knowledge about what many may refer to as mind control. He is exposing this dark side through his best-selling book, Phrase 7. So I think somewhere he said 30 years working in the government. He had
little like a Men Who
multiple,
Stare at Goats.
Huh?
You ever see the movie Men Who Stare at Goats?
Yes.
Right? And they're like sitting there staring at the goat.
I do have a picture of him, but I don't know if I have that in my snapshots. He reveals unforgettable secrets under the umbrella of fiction. Yeah. So anyway, he's using fiction to get his word across, but he continues to teach like applied behavioral science. Former military chief gives customized and discreet services to leaders across the globe and can implement global services within 48 hours. So I guess he's got his own team.
All right,
with
let's
guaranteed protection.
But what's the punchline here? Let's give the guy the benefit of the doubt for a moment that he's an expert.
Yeah, I mean, he trains the stuff that he's learned.
But what's his deal? What's he got to say? Or is it going to be a surprise for the video? Like,
well, we're getting to that.
Oh, okay.
We're getting to that. So he has analyzed the group, the audience at the Trump shooting, and especially the ones that we see like directly behind Trump. So here's he was on a podcast.
My new girlfriend. Right?
Oh, that girl?
Yeah.
Actually, that's a whole separate video. That girl who like didn't respond or whatever. He's kind of doing the whole.
I want her as my bodyguard.
The whole audience here. Yeah, well, she seemed to know some things.
Meow. Yeah.
And in another video, he did analyze her. That was the complete video. Him and another behavioral expert analyzing her. And Chase said in his 30 years that he's never seen anybody have a reaction so different from the normal reaction in a trauma scene like this.
Yeah, I mean,
in 30
clearly
years.
a highly trained agent that has seen some real action, because she's like Joan of fucking Arc out there, man. That chick was like...
She was the girl like directly behind and to the right of Trump as you're looking, and she...
I hope she gets a Playboy
didn't
deal.
have any kind of fear response whatsoever. And a lot of this stuff is like... It's programmed into you. You'll hear him say, millions of years.
Like those Secret Service agents, those women Secret Service agents.
Yeah, there's so much,
Yeah.
so much here. But anyway, so yeah, she was directly behind, and she was the first one. Came up, the camera on her phone was ready to shoot immediately, and she wasn't doing all the trauma response behaviors that everybody else.
yeah.
But anyway, here's kind of the introduction to Chase Hughes.
All right.
If you just go back like 300 years, like we've been doing crazy, weird stuff like this for a long time. We've been involved with like the mind control, the MK Ultra programs. Yes, we acknowledge that all that stuff happened. That's one of the reasons that some people are being really distrustful, especially there's so much stuff that doesn't really fit together. The fact that this guy, and I don't know, I'm not a sniper or anything, but this dude is able to sit on top of this building for like a long time above all of these law enforcement officers who are inside that building. And the Secret Service doesn't do much about it. There's citizens reporting it long before the shooting even started. There's people pointing, reporting it to police. And apparently a police officer saw him on the roof with the rifle, and he pointed the rifle at the cop, and the cop like jumped off the roof, or somehow that report didn't make it up. So there's so many things that are just bizarre about this.
So in general, does this shooting make sense? And as an expert who has been involved in deployments in Iraq and all over the world and knows about the CIA overthrowing governments and all that kind of stuff, from that perspective, with that kind of experience, what did you think about this situation? And that was his answer.
Very interesting. You know, I mean, it seems to me like, you know, the one great point that I thought he made, which I hadn't considered before, but definitely my own life experience corroborates, is there's no fucking way in a metal roof building that you could get on that roof without everyone in the building beneath you knowing absolutely that there's someone on the roof, because I've got a tin roof exactly like this and almost at the same angle as that
Even when it
building.
rains, it's so freaking loud.
Boom, 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 boom. And I mean, I have a house that's got a tin roof like this, and a bird can get on it. I had a toucan come onto the roof, and when the
live in
toucan
Ecuador.
landed, we thought, Jesus Christ, there's somebody on the roof. And like, it sounded like a fucking elephant, right? I mean, it was like,
It's a 1 pound toucan.
yeah, and it's like, that's a little tiny bird. We got outside to look to see what the fuck was going on, and there's this little tiny, I mean, it's not so tiny, but pretty small little toucan there making all that noise.
And supposedly the law enforcement agents who declined, I didn't know you could decline when you're in that kind of a position, but declined to be on the roof, said that it was too hot. And then the head of the Secret Service said that the slope was too large. It was dangerous for them to be up there. For one thing, apparently the slope is the same as a wheelchair ramp. And when you look at the videos later on, there's like 8 officers all standing up there just shooting the breeze, you know. So
Yeah, they weren't too worried about it.
But if those officers who declined to be on the roof were inside that building, you're right. It would have made a ton of noise.
Ton.
Yeah.
And to think, like, you know, I'm sure the order came from up high. If in another video I talked at least quite a bit about this idea that the powers that be, the surveillance state, aka tech giants, right, were sending their message. Not like those tech giants got together, but obviously, if you know anything, you know that the tech giants will all work for the same group. So these guys, I think, were sending a message to Trump potentially to say, you're
Step
putting
out of line
JD in as your vice president. JD is going to be your vice president because he's going to be the next president, right? And so even if it,
Wait a minute, he's just a hillbilly.
oh yeah, you know, can be for sure they're going to run him.
Watch
you know?
our JD video.
They're going to run JD.
He's
for
connected
president.
to so much money and has been for half his life.
And will do anything apparently, if you can believe the AI videos, in order to keep that, to keep those connections alive. And so I think great insight from somebody who obviously knows very well what's going on. I mean,
And
this
for
guy-
somebody that's worked in this kind of environment, again, in environments where the CIA overthrows governments and whatever, and is trained in analyzing human behavior, he has a checklist of what he looks for and what will make him suspicious. And here's him talking about his checklist.
Cool.
If any of this happens, I go through a checklist in my head, and I've never said this out loud, but I go through a checklist in my head. Was there motive for a group to have done this? And it's just a yes or no. And I look at the degree of suggestibility. How suggestible is that person? And could they have been made to do this? And it's just a yes or no. It was. But I'm always thinking this way of like, maybe something else is going on. But I always think that way of, I train psyops and I train these people who do these kinds of things in other countries. They overthrow governments and they overthrow leaders. And there's a process that psyops uses, that our government uses in other countries to overthrow leaders. And just looking at that, which is open information online, there's a lot of strangely similar stuff going on here.
Strangely similar.
So just to be on the page here, to make sure I'm getting what this guy's putting out, he's pondering the idea that Crooks was sort of like psychologically manipulated into being this person. Is that the vibe? That's right?
He's saying that the U.S. in particular and the CIA in particular has a history of overthrowing governments, and there's a specific way that they do that, and that he can identify when those processes are being used. And he's kind of inferring that, there's a lot of similarities in this situation to other coups that he has helped train people to do on behalf of the U.S. government in other countries.
Sure. Before they had control of the social media. This is what they...
Right, before everybody had a camera and could, film everything that was going on.
Nice. Well, interesting.
I have a really great little clip of him. Let me see if I can try to find it, where he talks about herd checking. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. Herd checking. Yeah, let's watch this one.
And you really get to see that when somebody's in fight or flight. You can look around that crowd of people and see people do what I call herd checking. It's the same thing a group of antelope do when they're out. One deer sees something and he's like, huh? And the head comes up, and then all the other deer follow suit. And they're like, huh? And they all kind of look at each other like, is someone supposed to run? And they kind of look at each other for cues. And people think like, I'm going to do something different. If you haven't been like through 1,000 hours of combat training and all that kind of stuff, it's almost impossible to override 1,000,000 years of evolution with some affirmations, or I'm going to watch a few YouTube videos, and that's going to override 1,000,000 years of us evolving to look at each other and to look at other members of our tribe for what to do.
Very interesting. And
so we're herd animals, and we can't think like, oh, if that when I was 17, I used to hear people say, oh, if this happened, I would do that. And I thought, even at that age, how could you know what you would do in that like strange of a situation?
Because they watched a movie and they had the backseat drove while they watched what he did.
Or now, you do some affirmations, or you watch some YouTube videos, or you just convince yourself that you're going to
enough.
You're going to be like really brave in the situation. You're going to be the hero or whatever. But basically, we're herd animals, and we look to each other to see what to do. And we don't want to be that one that sticks out above the crowd, because that's the one that might be in danger more than the others. Sure. There's a thing about looking to authority.
The way that people reacted, especially behind Donald Trump when he was on stage, 90% of those people realized there was an emergency and instantly looked to him for what to do. And the moment he ducks, you can see everyone else copy him Exactly. And that was just fascinating to me, just watching this kind of crowd behavior. And as a behavior profiler, that's one of the things we look for. Like, is something up? Okay, I'm just going to look for like what's not in place.
And we look to the person who we believe has the highest authority, which in this case was Trump.
Yes.
In their eyes.
I will say, in an emergency, we will look to the person who is most easily followable, not necessarily an authority. It could be some total dipshit. But if he stands up, he's yelling louder than everybody, he has very clear body language, that is the most followable person. So we'll go along with that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You know, this whole idea of how a crowd will think, group think.
Mob behavior.
Oh, man. I mean,
And most people are followers. So it doesn't. So if there's somebody in authority, like say there's a fire chief or something, and there's a fire and whatever, and they'll follow him, and that makes some sense.
Sure.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who has true authority. It can be somebody who acts like they have authority because they're the loudest and the brashest and the biggest gestures in the room.
Right. Like this guy.
That's crazy. That's scary.
No, I mean, you know, I think.
And maybe you were in the back of the room and you didn't see that person, that the first person that followed that guy. You're just following the whole rest of the crowd, assuming that the whole crowd knows, because all of these people couldn't be wrong, right?
Right. Actually, you know, I was recently just swept up in this. So nobody is immune from the energy, I think, because so Ecuador, I don't know, 6 months ago was really it was in the midst of some real violence, and the new president was declaring war on drugs and all this stuff was going on. And in the middle of it, I was walking downtown by the Central Park, and what I realize is I hear several people scream at the same moment, right? I mean, real scream. And I turn and I see like 30 people just running towards me. So I just was like, so fucking guy over there with a
Something must be
machine
up,
gun or something. I just start fucking running too. And and then I was like, I got in my car, went on to do the rest of my day. But you know, at night I was like, what the fuck was going on down there today that caused this? And apparently it was just a mass hysteria. Some kid had lit off a firework. 3 people declared it was the fucking bomb. And then, 25 people heard them say bomb. Then those 25 people ran and said, run.
Was that during the time when the drug guys took over the TV station and all that?
Yeah,
all this was in the air. So there was this atmosphere of danger.
Of fear, yeah. The atmosphere of like, look out, there could be some really crazy shit going on because they've just taken over the TV station.
And they do firecrackers here all the time, like 7 a.m, firecrackers.
Churches use
Just
them
it's
instead of bells.
everybody.
My favorite place I've ever saw for the fireworks for the end of the year. I mean, like I've been in Paris, I've been in New York, I've been in all sorts of cities for New Year's, and nothing compares to the fucking
This
pandemonium.
poor Catholic country's got a big budget for fireworks.
So many places it's like, oh, let's all march in orderly and we're going to watch an amazing fireworks show and then we're going to all walk out orderly. Here it's like everybody's got fireworks and they're getting set off at the top of every building, around every corner. It doesn't have to be high. Like there is no safety. The safety is you should be fucking careful about where people are lighting fireworks because they might just send them down your street, like I've seen rockets shooting down some crazy ass shit.
So anyway, mob behavior. So this guy's a behavior analyst, a brainwashing expert, and also he teaches about persuasion. So obviously corporations want him to teach him how to do sales and all that kind of stuff. And who knows what governments want him to teach him how to do persuasion and whatever. But he talks about... if you're trying to sell somebody something, you can sell them on an idea and, that can maybe get you what you want. But if you can sell them on if you can sell them on an identity, that they have this identity and therefore they would do this thing, that you can get them to do anything. And this is a guy who he was talking about, if you want to talk somebody into doing something, the consequence of which could be, treason against their country, and they could be executed or in jail forever. This is the kind of persuasion this guy would teach on behalf of our government in some of his deployments. But here he's talking about identity versus ideas.
So Sigmund Freud is the uncle of
Edward Bernays, who invented propaganda. And he wrote a book about it called Propaganda. And he wrote a second book called Crystallizing Public Opinion. And in these books, he talks about it's one thing to get somebody to adopt an idea. It's a whole separate thing to get someone to adopt an identity. So if I get your identity involved, you have cognitive dissonance. And this is a word that we use to talk about stress when something, I believe, disagrees with something outside here. So if somebody says, well, you're this and this, so naturally you would do X. You can get someone to do just about anything if you do it in terms of identity instead of ideas. Like if you have a hardcore Apple person and their office gives them a ThinkPad or something, and you see these people in an airport, you'll see that they put an Apple sticker on it.
So I wish I would have had time to look up the exact story I want to tell about Edward Bernays, but this is a guy who was kind of like, again, his uncle was Sigmund Freud, and so he knew a lot about psychology, and Edward specialized in marketing, and he was kind of the first big guy to do it and the first guy to do it really well. And when corporations understood the power of what he could get people to do, they used him, and he charged a lot of money and stuff. And I can't remember. I know there was a thing in Guatemala, but I think it was an island. And it was United Fruit for sure. And that island had been like leasing from the government the land to grow their bananas and all that kind of stuff. And they're exporting to the U.S. and making a ton of money on it and whatever. And so this new president or whatever, prime minister, came in and said, no, this is the people's land and we're not going to do this anymore. And they were going to kick out United Fruit. So this corporation
went... Think again, motherfucker.
This corporation went to Bernays. He came up with this marketing campaign. They went to the government. I think it was Eisenhower. They went to the government and said, there's these people that are like pointing like missiles at the U.S. and they want to overthrow the U.S. and they're a danger. And these particular people in power are a danger to our freedom and our democracy and whatever, and got the U.S. to invade and
wag the dog.
And the things he's talking about, a coup, a new person in charge, and now, the corporation had what they wanted.
Of course.
And all without the government understanding that this was a marketing campaign. So
Well,
this is the
government?
power of persuasion.
Oh, I see. Of course. I mean, isn't that every election? Isn't that what we are witnessing right now, right? Aren't we in the middle of the biggest propaganda campaign ever in the history of the world, which is
On every level. on
getting
so many
everybody to
levels.
believe that there's this big fucking fight between the Democrats and the Republicans when they all play golf together every weekend. They no different, right? These guys are just serving the same masters. They're just doing the same shit. But the script writer is out there just trying to make it seem like, oh my God, like who's gonna win? Everything's on the line.
And on every level, it's divide and conquer. And on every level, you'll see you have two main choices. Whether
Right.
it's your football team or your political party or, abortion versus not or whatever.
Right. But, that whole abortion thing is just another example of just them focusing issues that divide us, not issues that divide them.
Right.
Those are issues that divide
Right.
regular people that care about things besides money.
Right. And if you haven't done
Power.
anything for the country and you can't stand on your record as a politician, then you can use these divisive issues to run on, and people will vote just, a lot of women will vote just basically on that issue.
Yeah. Well, I think your 3% titanium tax is unconstitutional. Well, I think your 3% titanium tax doesn't go far enough.
There's one more point I want to make on people following authority. And people think they have free will, but again, we're talking about this lower part of our brain, this animal part of our brain.
Yeah. Don't forget to catch up.
To catch up. You can get ahead of me because I'm more of a lightweight than you. So again, people think in their minds, if this happened, I would do that, whatever. But there's a certain part that overrides, and we seem to have this really innate desire and need to follow authority. And there's something about it that helps us to relegate the responsibility. So if I'm just the agent underneath this person who's the authority, who's giving the order, it's not my fault.
Right.
And that's kind of what we saw with the Nazis.
Very
They were
much
just
so.
they were just carrying out orders.
Cowards.
So this is this is one of my favorite. I mean, even though it's really macabre, my favorite experiments, and it was back from 1962, I think. I think he says 72, but I think I looked it up and it was 62. So it's called the Milgram experiment, and we're going to do this in two parts.
Chapman Hall. And they run this ad in the paper. It says, we're doing a study on learning. Come participate in this ad, and we'll give you like a free sandwich or a lunch voucher or something. They're told, like, if this person gets a wrong answer on the test, this dude is on the other side of this wall. You've already met him, but he's locked in this room right beside you. If he gets a wrong answer on this little test, you hit this button and deliver a shock. If he gets another one, you drag this little voltage thing to the right and hit the button again, shock him again, and keep going and keep going. So throughout this whole time, people are screaming through the wall. They can hear this guy screaming. And all there is just a guy behind them at a desk in a lab coat. And I think over maybe 450 or something like that, there's a button that says XXX, danger, severe shock. And by this point, the guy in the room is not making any more sound, and he's not answering questions anymore.
He's playing dead.
Wow.
So there's a guy in the room with them with a lab coat just saying, go on. It's okay. It's the experiment. It has to go on. And so people are just doing this, even though it's danger, severe shock. It's silence on the other side. They think they've killed the guy or rendered him unconscious or something.
Yeah.
And they keep going because somebody told them to that had a white coat on
Yeah, I've heard of these experiments
for a
before.
sandwich.
Right.
That's their reward is the sandwich.
But like I mean, yeah, but I think there's a little bit of unfairness in these things because it's like jury duty, right? Like if you're not smart enough to get out of jury duty, nobody ever really wants to be on jury duty. Right?
Some people do, I think, but a small percentage.
Yeah, and
People
scary.
It makes them feel important.
Right. And so
Nothing else to do.
you end up with kind of like a dumb denominator, you know what I mean? Like you have a you kind of are getting a group of people like would you leave your fucking life and go fucking to some scientist test just to get a sandwich? Fuck no. Right? Because you got other things for doing.
Well, it's not the cream of the crop, I agree.
Right. So you get kind of impressionable people, one might conjecture Thomas Crooks was like that kind of a dude, right? Like I could see how, he worked at a nursing home. He was a pretty simple guy. I mean, everything that I've read or heard from people interviewed in his community were like, we can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, there was that one guy that said he was bullied, and
yeah,
I don't know. The guy kind of seemed like he wanted the attention, but everybody else said, hey, he was quiet, he was nice, Yeah, sometimes he sat alone at the lunch thing, but that was because his friends had different classes, different schedule that semester, but he did have friends, and
Yeah.
he was smart and polite.
And yeah, I mean, I saw quite an in-depth interview with somebody that worked with him at the nursing home and said, let me see if I can remember what it was, but it was something like the women had the residents had trouble opening the salad dressing tabs, and him and this other person were trying to figure out how they could make it something so that they could take the tabs off a lot easier because they didn't like to see them struggling. I mean, like,
It's pretty nice.
yeah.
What a nice guy.
Yeah, sweet. You know?
Okay, so if you were an enlightened and experienced scientist, and you had to predict how many people would go to the 450XXX danger severe shock, what percentage of people would go to that?
20%.
Okay, so let's watch this.
Any non-answer should be treated as an incorrect answer. So increase the voltage and go again, please. The experiment must continue. It's important that you continue for the experiment. And they go up. And before this experiment took place, these psychologists got together and psychiatrists and said, how many people are going to go through with this?
They predicted it. They made a
hypothesis. Mm-hmm. And they said, well, anybody who would do this has got to be sadistic to begin with. Maybe there's some psychopathy going on. We predict 0.1%. I'm estimating, but that's about what it was, less than 1%. And 0.1 will go all the way to XXX danger severe shock. And 67% went that far. 67%. And 200, 250 is enough to kill you. 100% went to that level.
Everyone.
Wow, that's amazing obedience.
Obedience to authority. And listen to the way they said it. Continue, please. The
Yeah.
experiment must go on.
Oh, the
It's important
undercurrent,
that the
yeah.
experiment must go on. Now, I did watch a documentary on this years ago of the whole thing, and there were a few people that said, fuck this. I mean,
Yeah.
they
Well,
didn't
33%.
swear back in the 60s, but on camera, but they said, fuck this, I'm not doing this, and walked out. But that was a really small percentage that did that.
Yeah, and 2/3 say, yeah, fucking.
2/3 went all the way, and 100% would have killed the guy
That's incredible.
because they didn't have responsibility, right?
Well, you know what? I really think I've had this issue in my life for many years, and many times in my life, I have had to deal with this idea of becoming obedient, and
Not an easy feat for you, I would imagine.
I will not obey. I will not obey. And so I've had this recurring in my life many times where you've got, well, how can you best put it? I guess is like our whole society is encouraged in this idea. Like I can think back to the 80s when I was in high school. It hasn't been any easier, right? It's gotten worse, got more control. Like I can remember how grades were so dependent on your social standing and what cliques of friends you were with, and like the best students got the best grades. They were regular ass kissers of the teacher, right? Sure. They were very obedient, and then you had to do things.
And answered the question answered the question with the answer that was expected, not necessarily the answer that they thought might be right or whatever.
Right. And so I think, when I had my own children for the first time, I was probably overprotective as a parent, as you are, right? Your first kid,
especially at first, you're scared to death.
Oh my God, they're made out of glass. And then you slowly realize, no, you know what? They're actually tough little fucking kids, like
made out
of rubber. Yeah, like this shit falls off. So we brought them into kindergarten because we had this very idealistic, this sort of naive idea that we were in the U.S. at the time, and man, I just didn't know how things had changed. I mean, I remember my own kindergarten and how lovely it was, and it was innocent, and I had like my first crush on Jennifer Bump.
Lost your virginity, probably.
No, you're sick. No, I was pretty young, but not that young. Jesus. So, anyway, we brought the kids in, and pretty soon they have them standing up for the fucking Pledge of Allegiance, and like, I know, I'm a pretty patriotic person, but fuck if my kids are gonna pledge allegiance to a fucking flag. Fuck off, right? Like, you can just suck on that one. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Like, my kids aren't going to pledge allegiance to any fucking flag so they can go die in your next goddamn money war, you cocksucking bastards. And
Tell us how you really feel.
I mean, I just think absolutely ridiculous. But yet, you see that the whole school was like shocked. They were like, Paul, we can't believe that you're why won't you have your kids pledge allegiance to the flag? And like, I had to have this like conversation with them a bunch of times, right? And then later in the year, something that became much more serious, and this is like, think of a kindergarten, right? Is they have to they teach these kids at this age, and how long have they been doing it? Yes, Mrs. Smith. Yes, Mrs. Baker. Meanwhile, she's free to call them by their first name, and there's this structured obedience and hierarchy that they're trained into from this early age.
Right.
And over and over again, it's reinforced. And then, like, how many teachers did we have that would, if all else failed, I'll tell you what happened to me a whole bunch of times. Because some teacher tried to give me some shit in school. I'd be like, let me give you a little something. And they'd try to publicly ridicule me by using his power over the other kids to get all of the kids to laugh at me at the same time, right? And most people respond to that with like,
shame.
They fucking give in. And I think, whenever we're talking about an obedience issue and how people will just like these experiments, I thought 20% was going to be a lot, but 67% I think really reinforces
Shocking.
how much that really takes over your
Right.
Like, I bet a lot of those people went home and I bet they really regretted what they had done.
I hope so. Fuck.
Upon reflection.
Yeah.
But damage is done,
and shocked that they did what they did. It even surprised them.
Right. Just incredible.
Yeah.
Cool little clip to share. Thanks.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool. That was an
Okay.
interesting one. Right?
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by psychology. I've worked with it for 20 years with some of my clients and stuff. So anyway, we thank you for watching, and we hope you will like and subscribe and share the video with friends you think might enjoy it. And
if you could write like a letter of recommendation for us.
to whom? To your
Yeah.
authority of choice.
Yeah.
No, don't mention us. But yeah,
At least the click.
we appreciate your patronage.